What's your question?
Thanks very much, Cathaoirleach. Minister, my question relates to, I'm just wondering if you have had any discussions with the Department of Foreign Affairs, you or your officials, or if you've been speaking with the Iranians with a view to opening up markets again for beef and lamb sales. I mean, as has been much discussed in here, there's probably more beef in the cold storage plants at the moment than we'd like, and not selling it to the likes of the Iranians doesn't really make much sense, in my opinion.
Thank you, Deputy. In February 2019, officials from my department met the Iranian ambassador to Ireland, His Excellency Masoud Eslami, accompanied by his economic counsellor. A range of subjects, including agri-food exports to Iran, were addressed at the meeting. I also met the ambassador myself on the 21st of September 2017. Total Irish agri-food exports to Iran in 2017 were around €11.5 million, the majority of which, €10.25 million, was accounted for by dairy exports. According to the CSO, 26 tonnes of beef were exported to Iran in 2017, but there have been no exports of sheep meat to date. The role of my department is to open up markets for the industry, and it is then up to the industry, with the support of my department and Board BIA, to avail of these opportunities. However, the actual levels of exports will depend on a range of factors, including global supply and demand dynamics, currency fluctuations and individual customer requirements. A veterinary health certificate for the export of beef from Ireland to Iran was agreed in March 2013. The Department of Agriculture, Food and Marine officials participated in a successful trade mission to Iran and Turkey in April 2016. While the trade mission was primarily dairy-focused, department officials had the opportunity to meet with their Iranian counterparts in order to progress and ultimately agree sheep meat access to the Iranian market, and also to explore other common areas of interest. Access for sheep meat was officially announced in October 2016. Therefore, these markets are open at present, but the resumption of exports is a matter for the industry. Limited or no exports to Iran can be explained by a combination of unfavourable trading conditions, cheaper supplies of beef from Brazil and of lamb from Australia to the Iranian market, and financial barriers. Work is ongoing within the European Union to devise measures to overcome financial barriers to trade between the European Union and Iran.
Well, Minister, yes, I realise that Iran is buying a lot of meat from Australia, New Zealand and Brazil, also from Romania. Is buying a lot of meat from Romania. Only recently, the Iranians purchased 50,000 carcasses of lamb. 50,000. They are a big. In last year, in 2018, they imported 160,000 tonnes of meat. It's a huge market, and they would like to be trading with us. It is blatantly, they've made it very obvious they want to do business with us, and other countries are doing business with them. The Europeans are getting around the so-called US sanctions with Iran, and they're selling plenty of different types of stuff to them. There's no logic for us not doing it. And Minister, surely, given the present situation, it would be a huge boost to the agricultural sector if we developed a better relationship with Iran, and also it would be helpful, obviously, if we opened the embassy in Tehran, because it goes without saying that I know that's a different matter. It's a foreign affairs matter, and it's not your responsibility. But I think you should be pushing for it, because practically all the Western Europeans, except Luxembourg, have put their embassies back in Iran, and the ones that left. We've opened new embassies lately, but it's mad that we haven't opened one in Tehran.
Thank you, Deputy. We are very anxious to have trade there. I mean, of recollection, it's an €80 million market, and quite an affluent middle-class market. But it's also a gateway to a market of probably in the region of 250 million through neighbouring countries. So it is very, very significant. And I've spoken directly to industry people here, and as I said, I met with the ambassador, and he was very anxious that we would have trade. But we open markets and engage in terms of the terms and conditions under which that trade can happen. From my conversations there are issues other than the regulatory side which are a hindrance to doing trade. And it's not that, the function of the department is, as I said, facilitating and opening trade, and we've been there on trade missions and the terms and conditions under which that can happen. But we can't take the industry and compel them to trade with these people It's an issue about how rewarding that market is relative to others, how easy it is to get your payments out of the country, I think was an issue which I encountered from conversations I had with agri-businesses previously. So there are issues outside the regulation and the wish to trade that are still a difficulty, which I think are, as I said, referenced in the reply, being negotiated at an EU level as well to facilitate greater trade and interaction.
Yeah, Minister, yes, the US sanctions on financial transactions is an issue. But that's actually, you can get around that. In the last Iranian year, March to March 18 to 19, we sold them approximately 140 million euros worth of stuff. How was that managed? It can be done. If there's a will, there's a way. And it isn't just done about the regulation either, Minister. I mean, there's definitely the Foreign Affairs have an issue with the fact that they don't want to be upsetting the US sanctions, but the Europeans are getting around it and doing a lot of business with Iran. And we're not going there. I mean, we even know, I mean, obviously, for example, when we ran into problems with selling aluminium to the Russians because the US had it on their list, and there was a whole lot of jobs at risk in Ireland, and rightfully we protected them. Right, and we got around it, and we reopened the sale of aluminium to the Russians, despite the fact that it had been on the US sanction list. Where there's a will, there's a way, and you would be doing. The state needs to facilitate the industry to sell to the Iranians. The blockage is, I'm not saying it's yours, Minister, I've no doubt that it isn't, right? But the blockage is at the Foreign Affairs level, and I honestly think that you should play a stronger hand to start it.
Yeah, thanks, Ceann Comhairle. I'm very glad to hear the Minister very strongly saying that this is a significant market and this is a market that he would like to open. I think that needs to be said, but he seems to be suggesting that the problem maybe is the farming organisations themselves. Is it not the case that they too are very keen that the Iranian market could be part of a solution to the overproduction at our end, an important market at this? I think it's very important that we would say is that the situation has moved on now. Most European countries are trading substantially with Iran, but what they have, which we don't have, is they've an embassy operating on the ground. And I presume in your meetings with the ambassador that he would have made it clear that that's a very important issue for them too. And you can understand it when everybody else in Europe is doing it. You have the information there on the ground. It's much more verifiable. It's much more open to dealing with trade. So what I'd like to know is, have you had discussions with the IFA about what practical steps we could put in place to facilitate what you say you want, and I believe you want, an opening up of this market? And also, have you had discussions with the Department of Foreign Affairs that a key part of this is a need to open our embassy in Iran, something which former Taoiseach Enda Kenny said a number of years ago was something that he was willing to look at. Everybody else in Europe has it, except us. We're losing out on important markets for our farmers unless we do this.
Well, Deputy Daly, it's not a question of opening the market. The market is open. We exported in 2017 11.5 million euros worth of goods there. So it is open for our main dairy products, for our beef products, for sheep meat. It is open. It's a question of what that market delivers in terms of profitability relative to any other market. And if it's more profitable to be in another market, it's surely not in the interest of primary producers or the agricultural sector here to be sending it for the sake of sending it. It's about being able to make sure that whatever markets we're in, they are delivering maximum profitability and therefore returns for the agricultural sector generally. Yes, the issue of the embassy is obvious, and as you're aware, we are increasing our global footprint, and that is one that I have spoken to the Department of Foreign Affairs about previously, because we see it not just as a market in itself, but also as a gateway to a significant region which has the potential. But I mean, it is currently being supplied in the context of beef by South American beef and sheep meat substantially by Australia. They are, particularly South American beef, is at a price that we couldn't compete with. But we make the point in the context of those markets that it's not wise to have all your eggs in one basket in terms of having a diverse range of suppliers, and we'd be very anxious to have and to explore further the possibility of supplying more in there. But it has to be on the basis that it's rewarding relative, or more rewarding relative to being in other markets, and that's ultimately a call for businesses themselves to make. And as I alluded to also, there are other factors that make it difficult to trade there, which are not related to regulations imposed by the state.